All right, as many of you know, I recently started playing Eve not too long ago. Obviously, like a 20-plus-year-old game that is, as many people know at this point, is a basically the gold standard for in-game MMO economies. And there was a thread on their Reddit 8 hours ago talking about Star Citizen. And I think it's just fun to look at what people on the outside think about the game, because guess who the majority of people that play Star Citizen, or the majority of people that matter in Star Citizen are? It's the people on the outside looking in, especially people from games like Eve, from games like Elite Dangerous. The games that compare in some ways to Star Citizen are really important to check out what they think, because they're the ones who would inject new money into the game. They're the ones who would play the game when the game actually comes out, things like that. So let's see what they have to say about it. Yeah, so it's my thoughts on Star Citizen shifting towards being an Eve clone. And it is, but it isn't. I think it's not going in the right direction for an Eve clone. And this is the dove into Star Citizen for the first time in forever, and RSI pivoting hard towards player-driven economy sandbox made me laugh and laugh. If anybody knows from like the around like close to 15 years now of Star Citizen's development, the word to describe Star Citizen has changed multiple times to be like best damn space sim ever. Remember, that was a very common one for a really long time. Then it was Universe Sim, and now it's MMO. And they've used the buzzwords like player-driven economy, sandbox, things like that forever. And what's funny about this post is I think they're going very far away from a player-driven economy based on decisions that they're making. So, yeah. CCP, this is not the Chinese Communist Party. This is Crowd Control Productions, I think, built this in a cave. These are the people that make Eve. And then RSI out of scraps. And then it's really about the comments here. Let's be real. The Eve economy is what every MMO game should strive towards. It's damn near the best part of Eve. I agree, and that's what I'm drawn to from Eve, and that's what I would love to see in Star Citizen from Eve. The thing is what drives the player-driven economy is ships exploding and people losing their stuff. Right? So I was thinking about it the other day. I was watching somebody say, oh, this component on a ship in Eve is way too expensive to use. And it was like 353 million credits. Eve credits and Star Citizen credits do not compare. 353 million, people make like, their goal is to make like $1 billion an hour or something like that. Like, I think I, as a new player, can make 100 million an hour. So 3 hours for a really good component to put on your ship. Would you, as a Star Citizen fan, be upset with that? I don't think so. But the reason the stuff is so cheap in terms of like time to earn them is that you're constantly losing them. So that's the difference with Star Citizen is you swipe your credit card and you get the ship and you keep it forever and it doesn't disappear, right? You just click the claim button, you get it back. All the updates that you've put on it, you get back. And even in the future, anything you leave inside of it, you're going to get back. So it's like a totally different plan here. So for the original poster thinks it's going anywhere in the direction of Eve. It's not and never has and probably never will be. I wish it would go more in that direction, but I don't think it's ever going to. And this person says, a beautiful creature, a wondrous being that can only be nurtured by blood. That's the problem here. That I don't think the Star Citizen community can handle is the only thing that is driving this player-driven economy is literally spaceships exploding. You have to lose stuff in order for these things to constantly be churned and be used, right? And for crafters to create them. So it's an interesting thing. It's easy enough to fake the latter with item and cash sync, sure. But when you want to say you have a player-driven economy, they need to provide the demand, not just the supply. No amount of needing food will truly create demand. That's really, really good way to say it. It's not just the supply, like, or in Star Citizen, it's not even about like lowering supply. Like the big thing that they were doing is like, oh, you can't buy as many grenade launcher things here. You can't buy as many railgun ammos at these places. It's like, if you have to create demand from the players there, and that he said what I wanted to say about all the tiers of item insurance, ship insurance, everything about Star Citizen perfectly, is it doesn't matter what you do and how many things I can craft. If there is no demand for those items by other players, what is the purpose of crafting them? So instead, the demand is born in blood, the creation and destruction of the fruits of the most precious resource players have, time, and Eve is beautiful for it. And then this guy says, if only CCP stopped trying to sell ships for real money, and it got quite a few upvotes, and let's see the replies on this. What ships are for sale for real money? Mining barge packs for newbies have them. I've seen that. I think the first pack I had was that. The difference is if I take that ship out and it blows up, I don't get it back, right? They give away a Praxis, which is a really expensive ship, I think. All right, something about being racist, so we'll skip that. Star Citizen is a ship simulator game, then is still a ship simulator game instead of an actual MMO sandbox. Player-driven economy is just some invalid promise made by COG to get people hyped. Maybe true, maybe not. The decisions that they're currently making, which don't exactly matter because they're not putting any features in the game right now, right? The only things that they're doing are trying to keep us busy while they fix the game, while also making it more difficult for them to fix the game. So they're being really stupid on that front. But yeah, there's no player-driven economy in Star Citizen. It's AI-driven and it's called Quanta. And I imagine the replies are going to say this doesn't exist. Both systems are players and NPCs sharing an economy. The main variable is how much of the economy is run by each. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting into the depths of that EVE economy that I've always wanted to talk about with you, is both systems have NPC economies. I don't know if you're aware. It's not fully player-driven in EVE. But let's pretend that NPC demand and supply doesn't affect EVE. It's fundamental to our model here too. It's just that NPCs do 10% of the minerals in EVE and 90% in Star Citizen. Not entirely true, but because they don't do this in Star. There are no NPC miners. I don't know if you guys know in EVE, there's literally NPC miners mining asteroid belts in EVE, actively mining them. And apparently they use those minerals for something in the game, which is so cool. Like nothing is taken out of EVE without being used, which is very cool. This is the plan for Star Citizen. And I have always been, and for the people who, and I see your comments of Star Citizen always said it was going to be a 90% player driven, NPC driven, and 10% players and all this stuff. I always said that was a really bad idea. And I've been always adamantly against that. I am not against NPCs preventing the economy from falling apart, but I have never been for a world where you are just an ant that the NPCs control. I'm fine with being an ant that other players control, and I'm just like a new guy, and you know, I don't know what's going on kind of thing. But yeah, until they actually succeed at server meshing and integrating end users into their demoed but not implemented quanta system, we'll all get to sit here dreaming. Yep. That's vaporware. The actual Star Citizen economy is incredibly low supply and demand, with even slower burning refresh rate shared across all servers. Star Citizen deliberately fucks indie players because they assume everyone wants to be flying Red 5 and shooting down baddies. I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about here, but I think he's on one of the problems with the current Star Citizen economy is this low supply, low demand, or no demand in reality in a lot of ways. Cargo commodity trading. So yeah, here's a Blazemonger who's a big EVE player. There is NPC traders and around Jita as well, but they mostly outbid players. But they are mostly outbid by players most of the time, so they're more of a fallback than anything. Yeah, they don't let the economy fall below a certain number. That's really important, actually. And I hope that's what our NPCs actually are doing, is the players are the ones trading, but the NPCs set the baseline. And if the players ever say this thing is more expensive than the NPC baseline, you just go to the NPC. And then this has to come back down, right? That's what I hope the player-driven economy really is. But then they also can go, you know what? Let's just do this, or let's just do this. And this being the NPC. They can play with it a little bit, right? I don't know what that guy was on about. Nothing about Eve is similar to Star Citizen except for the fact that both games take place in space. Not true. Not true, but yeah. If you don't play it, you talk about it. 13 years, 800 million and counting. Yeah. Yep. And then here comes the Star Citizen fan, and his name is Such a Money Pit, which is ironic. Yes. Click F1 on a rock. Big brain mining. Yeah, Star Citizen player-driven economy currently amounts to a YouTube video explaining their rough vision for it. The game isn't even what's considered an alpha, and you're comparing it to a 20-year-old established game economy. They have had 13 years to establish something in this game, dude, and they haven't yet. That's the issue that we have here. There are wildly different games, and I don't even know why we're comparing them. Entirely different concepts for gameplay and interaction. Anyone who's played both knows this. So we're not comparing Eve and Star Citizen. Nobody is comparing Eve and Star Citizen together. They're comparing Eve's economy and the basis of it and where it's coming from and what it's all about to Star Citizen's economy, the basis of it, and what it's all about. Thank you, Hannah. I see you there. Right? That's what they're talking about. They're talking about, hey, there's space, there's spaceships, there's bases, there's crafting, there's mining, there's salvaging, there's medical, there's repairing. Like, all these things are in both games in a way. Medical, not so much. All those things are in the same game. There's clones, right? It's literally the same basis of a game. And Eve has this really, really strong economy, and Star Citizen has none, and anything they have done has fallen flat on its face, in my opinion, up to this point, economy-wise. So if you are looking at Eve and going, wow, that's a really good system, I'd love to see that in Star Citizen. You're not comparing Star Citizen to Eve. I'm literally playing Eve right now. I am playing Eve right now. Are you ready? While doing this. You can't do this in Star Citizen. I'm just AFK playing. You can't do that. That's not something you could do in Star Citizen. I can't just set my ship and set a bunch of drones out and let them kill these things. Right? While I'm talking to you guys, I'm playing Eve. They are fundamentally different games. Fundamentally different. Right? But their economies don't have to be for the reasons that I just explained. Now, I don't think the economies will be the same. And I don't necessarily think the community and the game can handle it. But I would love to see, because you can't have these giant wars or things like that happen in Eve either. So I would love to see it just move the pin a little bit more in that direction. But everything CIG has done with their insurance ideas has moved the pin in the opposite direction. And I don't know how people aren't seeing it, but it's moving you in the direction of the pledge store and not in the direction of buying things from other players, right? Yeah, exactly. Elevators do not kill you in Eve. The games are different. So let's go back to the thread. Eve had a player-driven economy from day one. Not entirely true either. It was seeded by NPCs. It still is. And it was seeded more by NPCs than it is now. Even I know that. It's evolved over the years, but it was a core concept of the original game design. That's probably true. Mining is just one of the initial resource-gathering activities, which are at the beginning of a complex and time-consuming industrial chain before goods get produced. Honestly, this depends on how you look at it. This is a guy who's on Eve Reddit, so he probably eats, breathes, and sleeps Eve. So I hope, maybe this gets to him at some point, and he kind of understands that that's for him, right? This super complex, time-consuming industrial chains, those are for him. But I get to come into Eve as a brand new player, and I have a mega basic 2 to 3 materials, maybe 5 at the most. They're all relatively easy to get, especially if you're in like a nullsec corp, and you just get to make stuff that people actually use, and people actually use low-end stuff because there aren't insane insurance systems. Like, I am not saying the things that I'm saying about Star Citizen because I want the game to work for me. I'm saying these things because I came to a 20-year-old game that has a monstrously ridiculous complex, time-consuming industrial chain to build the biggest and baddest ships. And I came here 20 years later, and I found a niche that I can do as a brand new player, and people actually engage with it on a daily basis. I can craft something every day, and somebody will buy it. And I feel so good about it. I am not complaining about Star Citizen when we have these conversations. I'm trying to share with you the absolute joy that I've had in a game like Eve, and there's nothing more I want out of Star Citizen to feel that exact same joy. Like, that is where my frustration comes from. That is what I'm trying to share with you. And I don't think that ever comes through clearly, because I'm always, I look at the world in a certain light, which is, I look at what's wrong instead of what's right. I'm trying to tell you what felt so good, and every direction that they're going in is going in the opposite direction of that. And it's pretty frustrating, got to say. With Star Citizen, there's nothing like this, and you just mine and then sell to the system. Currently, because there's no crafting, right? A lot of what Star Citizen wants to do is take that and bring the next steps in. Yes, Star Citizen's still in development. It's ridiculous that it still is. It's ridiculous that we don't have a crafting system. It's ridiculous that it's taken this long to get here. But Star Citizen's intention is to not just mine and then sell to the system. So we'll see. But even with all these new things, maybe that's still what's going to happen. There's nothing to do with the resources you gather other than sell them raw. Not true, but kind of. It feels like they are shoehorning it in because someone realized they were missing out on a potentially immersive part of the game. Yes. And again, another thing that I have been calling out since like 2014, Chris Roberts, the CEO of the game, literally said there would be no crafting in Star Citizen. And I was like, what? The fuck are you talking about? How can there be no crafting in Star Citizen? And I got hate from the moment that I said those things, because Chris Roberts said, and he is God. And I was like, you know what? For him to say that, he is not God. He's clueless. And he's clueless on how to make an MMO, I guess. Even though he was a part of the making of one of the greatest MMOs in the history of the world, Ultima Online. So I have no idea how you can look at Star Citizen and go, we're not going to have crafting. What a clown. And I've been saying that for years, and then they finally realized they got to make crafting. They come up with what looks like a really great system in 2024. They tell us about it. And then early in 2025, they just tell us how they're going to completely undermine that system and send you to the pledge store, which is pretty frustrating. Ships are mostly ammo and Eve, which is not the case in Star Citizen. And there's a very high attrition rate, so a lot of opportunity to incorporate the economy into the gameplay. Star Citizen does not have such a high turnover, and ships respawn, so currently there isn't a gap in the gameplay that needs filling, right? Yeah, it's unfair to compare Star Citizen to a 20-year-old game. Star Citizen's only 12 or 10 years old, more than that, but yeah, probably 10 as a... No, it's 8 as a PU, right? As the actual, like, multiplayer universe. Getting into EVE again after playing Star Citizen really reminds me of just how bare bones and bad the underlying game design of Star Citizen is. Look at something as simple as mining in EVE versus Star Citizen. It's not even close. Star Citizen may look better, but EVE has just as much more depth to the actual game mechanics. What is this guy talking about? Dude, mining in EVE, you literally just click F1 and F2. You go up to a rock, you click F1 and F2, that's it. So I have no idea what he's talking about on this front. Where in Star Citizen, this is why I want to take what is so fantastic about the economy in EVE. And the biggest problem with EVE is that you can have 35 accounts on mining all at the same time, all clicking F1 and F2, and then going around and compressing the ore every once in a while, and go about your day making billions of credits and thinking you're some kind of industrial genius or something. Whereas in Star Citizen, the mechanic is so hands-on, so tactile, that it feels fantastic. It is so rewarding to just break a rock, right, and scoop it up. What's missing is what you do with it after. And I assume that's the depth this guy is talking about, is what you do after mining. What you do during mining, Star Citizen wins, and Elite Dangerous beats Star Citizen on that front. EVE has great mechanics, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is just so lacking. Here you go. I think I know that guy, honestly. I think everyone hopped on Star Citizen hoped Star Citizen won't be Eve, but you actually fly the spaceship. But it's so unlikely that Star Citizen ever has even half the depth or breadth that Eve does. That I think where the depth and breadth comes from is these conversations around the 20-year thing. And Star Citizen has had 8. And it needs to have more than what it has now, given the amount of time that it has, right? But Star Citizen could be elements of Eve, but you actually fly the spaceship. But they're choosing to go a different direction, and we'll see. It may fall flat on its face. It may not. I don't know. Or they could wake up in a year, 6 months, a month, and go, you know what? Maybe we should go a direction where, you lose ships, but you can get them easily. I don't know. But the idea of this is my ship, you can literally name your ship. I know you can name your ship in Eve, but it's a little different in Star Citizen. The this is mine, my own, it's ridiculous. And I think that's the thing that's hurting it the most. Everyone stares at their ship and their website hanger and this is mine. What am I going to do with this reclaimer? I'm going to do this with this. And it's like, I don't know. Eve mining has more depth, but seriously lacks engagement, aka boring as fuck. Yep. I think you have that backwards. Eve is the one where you target, turn on, AFK. Yeah, exactly. Star Citizen will never be a real game. It doesn't matter what they're doing this week to defraud their players. It's all smoke and mirrors. Okay, buddy. It's still incredible that people think Star Citizen is a place in the conversation in 2025. It's not happening. You got scammed. Maybe. Wait, that Ponzi scheme is still up? Is people dumb or what? Yes. People is dumb. And then probably should do another round of Kickstarter. They haven't stopped, buddy. It hasn't stopped. To be fair, Star Citizen always was going to be this. No, it wasn't. EVE Online is a game with dedicated following. Star Citizen is a cult with deranged acolytes. True. The difference between passion-driven development compared to profit-driven development. Hello. What's weird is EVE is profit-driven with passion. Star Citizen is staying afloat driven. And I feel like the passion has been lost by the people who make decisions, but the passion from the developers are still there. Don't tell me Elliot isn't passionate, right? Don't tell me Ian isn't passionate. So don't tell me Zach isn't passionate. You know what I mean? But the people who, I don't know if Rich is, I know he is. I know he's passionate. But I'm creating Chris Roberts' vision when, I don't know. So it's a little bit weird. CIG develops the game. RSI does not. All right. Okay, good. Dude. Scam Citizen is not a game. It's been a tech demo for years. Star Citizen has direction. News to me, Lamal. The cult is brigading this thread. Really, last time I tried Star Citizen, it tried to be Tarkov. I must have tried CZs, I guess. Okay. Well, that was an interesting thread, and I think it was a good little conversation starter, something to bounce off of. Again, I just want to tell you the feelings that I have playing a game like Eve, playing and engaging with Eve's economy. And the closer we can get to that, the better. Right? In my opinion. I don't know what you guys think. Obviously, you want to... I talked about this before. I think the main driving problem with a lot of the decision making is I blow up, I got to take an elevator, it takes me 35 minutes to get to my ship and get going again. I was trying to sneak into Hathor mining today as a solo, and I died 3 times. And the amount of time it took me to get back to the area and go again was a really long time, right? And I think that's the main issue that people have is dude, I literally have to wait for my slow-ass elevator to bring a ship up. It's just goofy stuff like that. And if they just didn't do that as much, I think that there would be a lot less problems and players would be a lot more pain adverse. The ability to lose their armor, lose a weapon, lose a ship, and be okay with it. If the ability to buy another one and get back into the game was both affordable, quick and easy to do, fitting it was easy, I feel like people would be a lot more risk adverse and be able to do it. And because that's how Eve players are. Eve players look at their ships as ammo, whereas Star Citizen players look at ships as like the fucking one ring. And that's the problem here is every single Star Citizen fan is Smeagol. And they can't be, man. Otherwise, there's no world where even 1% of the economy would be player driven if everybody is just hugging all their stuff and don't want to have things recycle. So whatever direction we go is the direction we're going to go. But I just want to tell you how engaging as MMOs have to exist in the way that Eve existed for me. And that is you show up 20 years later and there's still something engaging for you to do that actually matters. Star Citizen will not be that. It will always be like, yeah, you can go do bounties and, you're not doing anything meaningful. But maybe I'm just biased. I mean, I can imagine that I am. I see lots of comments telling me that I am. I just don't think how the feelings that I experience could be a bad thing to inject into a game like Star Citizen. Does that make sense? To give those feelings to other players, why wouldn't you want to do that? That's the whole thing for me is every time I have a conversation like this and we talk about the insurance, we talk about crafting, we talk about losing stuff, people come out of the woodworks flinging tomatoes at me and telling me how I'm stupid and this and that and the other thing. And I struggle with how there's an argument against it. And I think I very clearly explained, like, is your frustrations coming from losing your ship, or is your frustration coming from the other annoyances that come with losing your ship? Right? That's the thing that I struggle with. So I don't know. That's all I got on this, and we'll probably throw this up on the TV channel. But that was a fun little thread to read and bounce off of. Again, I want to share the happy things, the things that make me happy, not the things that piss me off. And that's I don't want to lose the ability to feel that in Star Citizen. Same thing with looting. The ability to open someone's inventory and get excited. I want to have that. I don't think we ever had that before. I actually think there's a Void vid on that. We can watch that next if you guys want. But I want to have that feeling. And that feeling doesn't exist in the game currently. And it never did, even when we were able to loot people. So that's the important thing there.